Hey everybody, Yankee here. As many of you know, I did a video yesterday talking about this Liberty Safe drama that's going on right now. And in the comments section, a lot of people disagreed with me. That video has only like an 82-83% approval rating. My videos usually have 98%. So that means probably 15-17% of the people disagree with me. And that's always good. I like that. That opens up conversations. So I want to talk about some of the things that came up in the comments section. I want to address them here. And then I want to remind everyone that if you disagree with anything I say here or in that video or any video, come to our live chats. We do them every night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, except for Monday and Wednesday when they're at 5 p.m. Pacific time. Come on in. Say your piece. If you think we've got something wrong or you think you have information I don't have or haven't seen, which is likely, probably, come on in and have your say, be part of the conversation. With that being said, the things I really want to address that came up in that comment section of the video yesterday. One, a lot of people were saying that this wasn't even a lawful search, that they didn't have a warrant for the safe. They're also saying that Liberty Safe had no obligation to cooperate with police since the warrant didn't have their name on it. Some people are even saying they should wait for a subpoena or blah, 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 and something else, which we'll talk about that, how that's wrong too. But we'll talk about, I think I said subpoena incorrectly in some places in a video, but you know, I say incorrect things all the time. So surprise, surprise, I'm old and I say stupid shit. But also they were saying, oh, we're not hypocrites for saying that police should have these powers and that we support the police, and then saying don't cooperate with the police because those are local police and these are feds. We'll talk about how that's ridiculous too. First off, let's talk about, did they have a warrant to look in the safe? I guarantee you they had a warrant to look in the safe. Warrants can be quite broad on where they can look. That's not what they have to be so specific about. What they have to be more specific about is what they're looking for. They can't have a warrant that says we can go in your house and look until we find something incriminating. But if they say, we're going in your house and look because we think you did this crime, we're looking for evidence of this crime, or we're looking for this specific piece of evidence, then they can be pretty broad in where they're allowed to look. Most warrants will say the domicile, any part of the building that is controlled by or linked to the suspected person, any outbuildings they have access to, any locked or controlled storage areas they have access to. That would include safes, even storage buildings that are off-site, that are under their name. There'd be a lot of things under the warrant. No one writes a warrant saying, hey, we want to go in and find this, and we have the right to look in his nightstand right-hand side drawer. It just doesn't make sense. Warrants usually are pretty inclusive about this type stuff. It's just boilerplate. So I can't imagine that a warrant excluded his safe, especially when they're looking for evidence of that might be involved, like a weapon or something like that, or documents that would be kept in a safe, etc. The safe is going to be covered in the warrant. All right, now let's talk about whether Liberty had any responsibility to or obligation to cooperate with the police, even though their name wasn't on the warrant. And yes, they did. I think we all know, you're told all the time, if police officers are engaged in the lawful execution of their duty, you are obligated to comply and not obstruct. So when they come there and they say, hey, we've got a warrant to get in this safe, you have the combination, you have a master code for situations like this, which I don't like the fact there's a master code. You should have the right to delete that. That gets me more mad than anything else in this thing. Well, less not quite as mad as the hypocrisy, but you know what I'm saying. I don't like that at all. But they're saying, you've got this code. We know you have it. We have a warrant here. We have every right to look inside his safe. So we need you to cooperate with our investigation. Yes, they do have a legal obligation to do that. And if they refuse, what would have happened? And I'm sure they talked to their counsel, like Dale Rickety said in my live chat today. I'm sure they called their lawyer, and their lawyer told them, like, hey, you do have an obligation to comply. If you choose not to comply, what they're going to do is they're just going to call the judge and say, hey, we've got the information here, the company here that made the safe, that the evidence is in, that we have the warrant to get into, but they won't give us the information. Well, the judge is going to write a warrant for that information right then and there with Liberty's name on it. Ship it over within an hour probably, they're going to have that information. And it might not be as pleasant as just you handing them the information like a piece of paper with the code on it. It might be them coming in and taking your servers, your records, your file cabinets, etc. And now your business is hurt. And plus, because you didn't cooperate with a legal investigation, you tried to obstruct it, you could be facing obstruction charges. So there was nothing to gain by Liberty Safe for not complying, and there was a lot to lose. So if you're not willing to lose a lot for the same thing, then don't fault Liberty Safe. And I don't think most of you are. So I think that's very hypocritical to ask them to do something that you wouldn't do. Like you wouldn't not turn over, like if I was on your podcast and I said, I'm going to go shoot the sheriff. And I left and went and shot the sheriff. The next day, the FBI calls you or local police call you and say, hey, this nut job shot the sheriff. We heard he said last night on your podcast, he admitted he was going to do it. We need a copy of that video. You have legal obligation to comply with that. If you don't, well, then they can go get a warrant and get it. And also, if they want to be dicks because you forced it to that point, they can charge you with obstruction. They could even start to imply that maybe you were an accomplice. You could face a lot of problems. You're going to turn that video over. You're not going to go to protect me, the idiot that shot the sheriff. So don't be a hypocrite. If you wouldn't do that, don't expect Liberty Safe to do that. And plus, with them, it's not just them that's on the line. It's the people who work for them, the people who make the safes, people sell the safes, people transport the safes, etc. People who work in the office, a lot of people depending on that business. So they were risking a lot of people's livelihood, and you probably wouldn't even risk your own. So don't be a hypocrite. Nobody likes hypocrites. Nobody likes hypocrisy, so don't engage in it. It just looks bad on anyone. So like I said, they had a legal obligation to comply. They could have forced it to where they got a warrant in their name, which someone said that they're doing some damage control, which is expected. And they said, next time we'll wait till there's a subpoena. I think they meant warrant, or they may have said warrant. And I think the other person meant warrant too. Because I've said subpoena by mistake, I think, a couple of times. In fact, I even had to look up how to spell it. So I say stupid stuff all the time though. So that's to be expected. When I was talking subpoena, I mean warrant too. Because here's the thing, subpoena just means, hey, we want you to come and appear in the courtroom in front of the judge. That's a subpoena. A warrant is, hey, the police have the right to take your information by force. And the fact that you pushed it to that's not going to be good for you. So subpoena is not really relevant here unless they pushed it to the point like they were fighting it in court, etc. And then the judge says, I want to see you in the courtroom because he's probably going to lock you up until you change your mind. Subpoenas aren't even going to come into it. But I hear they're saying, well, we're going to wait till there's a specific warrant for us next time. Well, all that's going to do is now police are going to say, okay, anytime we deal with Liberty Safes, their policy is the warrant has to have their name on it. So we'll just get a boilerplate warrant from the judge if that person has a Liberty Safe. So not going to change anything, really. Like I said, even in this case, wouldn't have changed anything at the end of the day, just might have delayed the feds a little bit. Just a little bit. Wouldn't have protected the person who's under investigation. Because here's the thing, if they couldn't get the combination to the safe, they just call the judge and say, hey, we can't get the combination to the safe, so we're going to have to cut it open. And they've been like, fine, cut it open. They can't do that without a warrant. They have to have a warrant, but they already had a warrant. It's like they can't stop you on the side of the road and say, hey, can I search your vehicle? And even if you consent, they can't destroy things. Like if they think you have heroin stuffed in your tire, they can't cut your tires. They can't do that. They'd have to have a warrant to do that. But they had a warrant. So they just smashed the safe. It would take them 15 minutes with an angle grinder. No one would have been protected if Liberty Safe didn't cooperate, if they somehow decided they weren't going to do what they were legally obligated to do, and they were going to push it to as far as they could legally push it before they faced criminal charges themselves. No one would have been protected, period. So that's just kind of silly. And the thing about people saying, hey, it's all right that I lick cop boots and then tell people not to comply with the cops when it's something I don't like, that's not hypocritical. Yeah, it is. Because here's the thing. You think city cops are different? You said, the FBI is funded by the feds. So is the city police. Even your sheriff's department. A lot of these places get matching funding, if not more than matching funding from the government. The government also pays for a lot of their training. The federal government provides a lot of their military stuff. They're MRAPs. They're armored vehicles. They're weapons. So if you think that they're not tied to the feds, they are. And here's the thing, the FBI guys are local too. It's not like all the FBI guys are in Washington, D.C. and they ship them out when they need them. No, there's local branches of the FBI. There's people in your town, probably if you live in a big city or something, that are FBI agents that live right down the street from you. They're locals too. So the only difference is, the names on their vests when they're at the crime scene usually. They're all controlled by the same people, the same powers that be pull their strings. And on local levels, most of those police officers are appointed, the leadership of those police officers are appointed by politicians who answer to the politicians in Washington. So the whole thing is tied together. So if you try to make a distinction, that just shows you're trying to rationalize your own ignorance, because they're all the same. They all have too much power, which is like why you're obligated to go along with them. They do have too much power. I'm not going to argue that. I'm not very pro-police. I think the police institutions are corrupt. So you're not going to have me arguing that, Liberty should have just gone along with police, period, on the principle, because I don't like the police. I'm not that fond. So the principle here, though, is people who are trying to bankrupt and cancel them, even though they did what they tell people to do usually, which is comply with the police. So that's hypocritical too. I don't like that at all. And plus the whole thing, let's cancel them. If you're not pro-cancel culture, if you bitch every time someone tries to cancel something from the left, well then don't fucking try to do it from the right either, because that makes you a hypocrite. Those are the things that bother me about this. Like I said, I don't even care about the actual events so much as just the hypocrisy and the, I'm so angry bullshit, where people get distracted by every little thing they're supposed to be, angry and irate and just, incensed about today. Because it's just garbage, most of it. Like I said, at the end of the day, none of this really mattered. The police would have gotten in that safe. Liberty Safe would have ended up giving the information one way or the other, and also possibly faced charges. So nothing would have changed. Yet everyone's enraged. And I know Liberty Safe, like I said, is trying to do damage control. Who can blame them? But next time it happens, things ain't going to be much different. Not going to be any different whatsoever. Just some people will have a different type of paper, a little bit different writing on that paper when they show up. But in the end, it's going to be the same result. And if you choose to get all upset about that, well, that's on you. But make sure you're holding people to the same standards you hold yourself to. Or, like I said, you're the problem because you're a hypocrite.